Hey everyone, welcome back to the Parenting Lab. Over the past several days, I have had the chance to meet a lot of new people and have lots of great conversations around parenting. And three separate times, I have been asked specifically about screen time. Now, because I'm never one to overlook a pattern, I decided that I want to talk to you about this, even though it might be a slightly different conversation around screen time than you've had before. I don't think I've ever met a parent who hasn't wondered about screen time. Having raised my own kids in the era of video games and smartphones and social media and on demand entertainment, it's been really an evolving issue over these past couple of decades. I'm honestly kind of glad that I was raised before any of that really existed. It seems like my childhood was so much simpler than the one that my kids had, and probably the ones that your kids are having. But whether it's wondering how much is too much, or which shows and games are appropriate, or feeling guilty that we're using screens more than we planned, or even trying to figure out if just one more episode really is going to make that big of a difference. It's probably a conversation that every family has had. And honestly, if you've ever handed your child a tablet so you could make dinner, or answer an email, or finish a grocery trip, or just sit down for a few minutes without someone asking you for something, you are in very good company because most of us have done that. Now, there are plenty of people talking about screen time from the perspective of limits and rules, right? How many minutes are appropriate? Which shows are educational? Should kids even have phones at all? And what age should they get social media, right? Those are very important conversations, but they're not the one I want to have with you today because I don't think screen time is just a technology issue or even like a brain issue, right? We talk a lot about brain development in regard to screen time. I really want to approach it from the direction of the nervous system. And it's not just our kids, okay? It's not just their nervous system, but it's ours too. Because it's not just about how much screen time is my child getting, it's also what role is screen time playing in our family. And what is going on within me or within us as parents that's causing screens to be so problematic? Because screens do something for us. They calm us, they distract us, they entertain us, they help us escape boredom and frustration and discomfort and all kinds of emotional overwhelm. And not just for our kids, right? It's the same for us as adults too. We also struggle with screen time. So today, I don't want to talk about whether screens are good or bad. You can find lots of advice around that with just a quick Google search. What I really want to talk about is why they can become so hard to put down, why they feel so hard to limit, and what they might be teaching all of us about the way we cope with discomfort. Because this conversation isn't really about screens. It's about what we do when life gets uncomfortable. Now, one of the things we know about the brain is that it wires itself around repetition. The more we practice something, the more familiar that pathway becomes. So think about learning how to drive. When you first learn how to drive, every little thing requires your full attention. You have to think about where your hands go, how hard to press the brake, when to check your mirrors. But after you practice with enough repetition, those actions become automatic and your brain becomes more efficient at it because it's learned the pattern. The same principle applies to just about everything. It applies to how we handle stress, how we deal with emotions, and even the way we seek out comfort and relief. Our brains are constantly asking the question, what's the fastest way to feel better? And screens are incredibly good at answering that question. They are designed to capture attention. Bright colors, constant movement, new information, every swipe, every video, every new level in a game offers those countless tiny rewards that keep our brains engaged. Now, that's not a design flaw. It literally is the design, okay? And it's so effective because of dopamine. Dopamine is often called the brain's feel-good chemical, but I think that's oversimplified. It's really more about anticipation, like what's coming next, and motivation, what am I going to do with it? It helps us pay attention and stay engaged, and it helps us want to come back for more. It's one of the reasons we enjoy learning new things and accomplishing goals. Dopamine isn't our enemy. We actually need it. Okay. It's part of how we learn and explore and create and stay motivated. The challenge really is that screens deliver those little dopamine rewards over and over again with almost no effort required on our part. They offer that constant stream of the newness and novelty that keeps our brains wanting just one more video, one more level, one more swipe. And for kids whose brains are still developing, those experiences can be enticing, especially enticing, because they don't have the same ability as an adult to regulate attention and delay gratification and recognize when they've had enough. Their brains are just responding to something that feels exciting and rewarding. And this is where I think sometimes it gets misunderstood. Okay. The problem isn't that a child enjoys screens. Of course they do. The problem isn't that dopamine is bad, right? Of course we need it. Really, it's about what are our brains practicing? And I think this is where it's helpful to make a distinction between two important things. Relief and regulation are not the same thing. Now, relief is about changing how we feel as quickly as possible. It's the immediate comfort that makes that uncomfortable moment disappear or go away. Regulation, on the other hand, is different. Regulation is the ability to stay in discomfort without being overwhelmed by it. It's building the capacity to experience hard things, hard emotions, without needing that immediate escape. Sometimes those two things overlap. Okay, sometimes an external support like a hug or a walk outside or maybe watching our favorite movie, watching on a screen can help us regulate in the moment. But if immediate relief becomes the only strategy that we have, then we never really get the opportunity to strengthen and increase our own capacity. So if the pattern becomes the moment I feel bored or frustrated or lonely, restless, uncomfortable in any way, I reach for something that instantly changes how I feel, then that becomes the familiar pathway in our brain. Not because we intended it to be that way, it's just what we've practiced. And that is true whether you're 6 years old or 16 years old or 46 years old. So, what happens when the screen goes away? Well, for a lot of families, that is when things get hard. Okay, the whining starts. I'm bored. There's fights with siblings. There's complaining, wandering around the house, constantly asking, what can I do? And every suggestion that you make is met with, no, I don't want to do that. And as the parent, it's very, very easy to look at that moment and think, see, this is exactly why I end up giving them so much screen time. Or this is exactly why I just hand them the tablet. It's easier because it is. It is easier. But there's another way to look at it. Okay. When you have those moments, it is not just a child who's dysregulated because they want a screen. What's really happening is that your child has a nervous system that is having to adjust in real time. Just a few minutes ago, their brain was highly engaged. Okay, now the screen is off, and suddenly they're forced into a transition. They have to figure out now what to do with themselves. They have to tolerate a different pace. They have to navigate feelings that they weren't experiencing just a few seconds ago. And those transitions feel uncomfortable. So, what you're really witnessing in those moments is discomfort. And it's not just about our kids. Think about how often, as adults, we reach for our phones the second we're waiting in line, or sitting in the doctor's office, or standing at the grocery store checkout, or sitting at a red light, even. We have become so accustomed to constant stimulation that even a few seconds of stillness can actually feel uncomfortable. So, we're kind of practicing the same pattern, right? Discomfort, immediate relief. Discomfort, immediate relief. And the more we practice that cycle, the less opportunity we have to build our capacity to just be with what we're feeling. So this is very much a family issue. And when we focus around how many minutes of screen time is okay, it keeps the conversation focused on those external factors, like somehow phones and tablets and TVs are somehow responsible or that they're like our partners in parenting. But what's really going on is internal. It's how our nervous systems are regulating, what they're avoiding, and how we're skipping over and outsourcing our sense of calm and regulation. All right. So it's about whether we're giving ourselves and our kids the chance to discover that uncomfortable feelings don't actually have to be escaped. Sometimes we just need to experience them. Because if we're honest, sometimes the screen isn't just regulating them, it's regulating us. Okay, so remember, discomfort, immediate relief, discomfort, immediate relief. So think about a typical afternoon. You're trying to finish work, you're making dinner, you're answering a text, you're folding laundry, maybe you're at a restaurant and you just want to enjoy a conversation with your partner. You're just trying to live your best life, and your child is asking for a snack. And then they're asking what they can do because they're bored. Now they're fighting with their sibling, and now everybody's crying. Someone follows you to the bathroom. Someone can't find anything. Your nervous system now is at its limit. So what do? You turn on a show. You hand them a tablet. And then what happens? The house gets quiet. Nobody needs anything. The fighting stops. Interruption stops. You can hear yourself think. And all of that is okay. Sometimes we genuinely need moments like that, right? Sometimes screen time is a practical tool that allows us to do the things we need to do, to finish making dinner, to make that important phone call, to just have a second to rest and pull yourself together. There's absolutely a place for that. But it's worth becoming curious about what just happened when that happens, all right? Because yes, your child received a screen, but your nervous system also received relief. Okay, so they received relief, you received relief. The screen didn't just change their experience, it changed yours. All right, everyone now is happy. And sometimes that's exactly what we need. But we have to ask ourselves, are we borrowing calm or are we building capacity? Because those are two very different goals. When we would decide to reduce screen time, we're not just asking our kids to tolerate more discomfort, we're really setting ourselves up to have to tolerate more discomfort too. And sometimes that's a big ask because we don't have the capacity for more whining and more boredom, more conflict, more requests for our attention, more opportunities to help our children navigate emotions instead of distracting them from those emotions. And that is hard. Not because we're bad parents, right? We're not. Of course we're not. But because it's requiring us to stay present in moments that even we want to escape. And I think we all can relate to that. Okay. So let's move away from asking, why does my child always want to screen? Or what guidelines can I follow? Let's start asking, what becomes difficult for me when the screen is off? And how can I increase my capacity to stay in those moments of discomfort instead of seeking and relying on that immediate relief? Because those answers, the answers to those questions, tell us a lot more than a screen time tracker ever could. Okay? I think one of the greatest things we can do for our kids isn't to give them a life without discomfort, but to help them develop the confidence that they need to be able to move through discomfort. Because the discomfort isn't the enemy. It's where they learn that boredom isn't something to fear, okay? It actually can become imagination, right? A pile of blankets is a fort. A walk around the block is an adventure. None of those things just happen in the first 5 minutes of being bored or not having a screen in their hand. They happen after those moments of discomfort, after the whining and the crying that there's nothing to do. And the same is true for us as parents as well. Sometimes we have to move through the discomfort of listening to our kids complain before they discover something to do. Sometimes we have to tolerate a few minutes of sibling conflict before they work it out and stop fighting. Sometimes we have to resist the urge to rescue every uncomfortable moment because that's where the growth happens. Okay, and this isn't about never using screens. I use screens. I'm guessing that you use screens too. It's not an all or nothing situation here is simply an invitation to notice the pattern. When we automatically reach for immediate relief, whether it's a screen for our kids or a phone for ourselves, we miss opportunities to practice patience, creativity, emotional regulation, and practice trusting that we can handle a little bit of discomfort without feeling like we need to immediately make it go away, right? Because our brains, remember, wire around what we practice. So if we practice escaping discomfort every time it appears, whether it's us being bored in the grocery line or our kids throwing a tantrum because they want their phone back, that pathway is what becomes familiar. But if we practice staying present just a little bit longer each time, then we start to build new pathways, right? One that says, this might be uncomfortable, but I can handle it. I can sit in this for a minute. So I don't want to leave you with a new rule. I don't want to tell you how many minutes of screen time you should have or whether one show is better than another. Instead, the next time a screen comes on in your home, just ask yourself, pause and ask yourself, what is this screen doing for us right now? Is this more for me or more for them? What am I avoiding by turning on the screen? And are we borrowing calm or are we building capacity? And sometimes the answer is going to be we're just borrowing calm to get through this moment, and that's okay. We all need borrowed calm sometimes. But what I'm hoping is that over time, we can also give ourselves and our kids the chance to build the kind of capacity that doesn't depend on immediate relief. So, are screens bad? Are they good? I don't know. Should you only offer educational shows? Should you watch a show before bedtime? I don't know. Are games that are rated E okay? Should your 4-year-old play Minecraft? I don't know, right? Those are all choices that only you can make. I guess my position then is that the goal isn't to eliminate every source of relief. We all need relief sometimes, and sometimes the relief is a screen. The goal is really to become a family that doesn't depend on immediate relief every time life feels uncomfortable. So check your why. Ask yourself those questions and see whether you're relying on distraction instead of presence and what those triggers are trying to tell you. And look for those patterns in your kids too, because they're learning them very early. Okay? That's my take on screen time, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. If this episode gave you any new perspectives on screen time, I would love it if you would share it with another parent who might need to hear it. And if you're enjoying the podcast, leaving a rating or review is really one of the best ways to help other parents find these conversations and the work that we are doing here in the Parenting Lab. Have a wonderful week. I will see you back here next time, where we'll continue to explore the art and science of parenting and put your parenting to the test. Take care, everyone.